Let's go. Let's rock.
Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Hit Confirmed. This is episode 22. I am your host, Casey, joined with my co host, Coach, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Dude, like, it's this year is I feel like this year is going to be strong. It's going to be good. Bringing in the new year with content and I feel like this episode is going to help out a lot of people who are not just new to the scene, but people who are like outside of the scene. People who are, let's say, are like, I would say, like afraid or kind of like insecure about fighting games.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystique about what you need to do and what you want to do to have fun. And I feel like this will even help people who, been around for a good bit and they want to try new games and stuff and maybe it can bring them back to basics.
Yeah. Because it can be very intimidating, man. Like even at the level that we play at, it's so intimidating and it's so frustrating for people. But like once you get past like that first hurdle, it's like right for me at least, or for any, not just for me, for everybody. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, definitely when you get to a certain point. But I don't want to jump off the subject too much, but I forgot to say this last time. Sorry to jump out of the subject. You notice our new artwork here that we're using for the show now, and I forgot to explicitly thank Ein for that and his great talent and hard work and put into that. So we appreciate you. Thank you for giving that to us.
Dude, shout outs to I, man. That guy is a great, fantastic artist. And just like whenever a new character is announced, he's one of those people that's already posting it on Twitter,
Yeah,
like hours later. It's pretty cool.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, I just wanted to take a small moment and shout that out. And his link for his Twitter page will be in the description if you want to check that out. But back to the subject.
Yeah, man. So like today, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna like make it easier for people because it's. I don't think there's a lot of we have a lot of content and a lot of platforms that talk about fighting games and that deal with fighting games, but we don't go in depth about just just getting comfortable with them.
Oh, for sure, for sure. There's a lot of things like that kind of align with this. I've always heard like I've heard people like when I go to do this and read these instructions or this website or watch this video, I feel like they assume that I know so much already, and I don't know anything. I've heard that from plenty of people, and I was like, and I was always think about it. And it's like, yeah, a lot of fighting game content that teach you how to play a character, a game, or anything, they always have to start on the basis of A, B, and C already, and a lot of people don't know, and so they just kind of get, as they say, spinning your wheels and not knowing what to do, where to go, and feeling like an idiot when in reality nobody taught you like basic arithmetic as far as fighting games go.
Yep. Yep. So what I think I'm going to approach that we should take it on this episode is basically, on an emotional standpoint, think about like, when you're getting into fighting games, just don't even think about the game too much, honestly. Just, like anything, just pump yourself up, make yourself feel good. Like you're about to play a game of like a basketball game or a football game or anything like board game or anything. Just get yourself pumped up, ready, let yourself know, hey, look, this isn't this isn't like crazy. I'm not taking a test in the science class right now or anything like that.
You don't have that nightmare where you show up to the tournament with nothing but your underwear on, man.
No.
Yeah, I get you. A lot of people, they definitely psych themselves out because, they might not know all the rules or how to do all the stuff, or they've seen somebody who's already good play, and they're like, I can't do all that. Who can do all that? I gotta have no life, or, or I gotta have fast reactions, or my hands are, bad. And the reality is, It's not so intimidating. And the thing that a lot of us forget, even I forget it from time to time, is that when we first picked up these games, we didn't know anything. We didn't know anything. And we got to the point where we are by laying down the foundation brick by brick, playing people, talking to people, getting involved. So hopefully we can open that path for new players who want to play fighting games. Like your favorite franchise comes out with a fighting game, you like the Dungeon Fighter thing that's coming out soon, and you're like, oh man, I love Dungeon Fighter Online, but I don't and I love those characters, but it's a fighting game, I don't want to. We're gonna try to get you past that.
Yeah, yeah. And so the first thing I want to suggest for people is, you know, think about good things that like things that you were bad at first, right? Whatever thing what things were you bad at first, coach, that like, you eventually got good at, you know?
um I would say, what did I say? I would say stuff like, programming. I didn't know the first thing from, up from down. And, all these terms are intimidating because, all this terminology is being repeated and constantly thrown at you, and you don't know what any of it means. And so, like, while you're trying to learn, you're trying to figure out this terminology, and it feels so overwhelming. And so, yeah, I've definitely had that feeling. I mean, with fighting games and just anything you try to learn, it's just like you look up and you see the mountain of where what you got to do, and you're on the
Yeah.
ground, and it feels so intimidating when it doesn't really have to be.
Nope, it doesn't have to be. And you can flip that intimidation into something very interesting and magical. For me, dancing is something I've always done since I was young. And people, they would see, whenever they see me dance now, or whenever they see me dance, they would say, how did you learn that? Or who taught you anything? And I always would tell them I did it since I was young, and I made sure it was like in a way where I almost like embarrassed myself all the time when I did it. Like, I know it sounds silly, but like you not caring about like who's around you when you're doing it. You're just in your groove, you know. You don't care if you're doing it right or wrong. The first time you're going about it, or the first couple of times you're going about it, you're just doing it right, just to make yourself feel good. And like I said, the reason why I say it might be embarrassing at first because some people might look at you and be like, oh, he or she is doing it wrong. It's like that's embarrassing. Must be embarrassing, but to you, you're like you're just doing it. You're in your own zone. You're in your zone. So yeah, that's how I kind of like throw the parallels to it.
I think that's very important actually, because one of the things that even people who are kind of quote unquote veterans, they get caught up in this mindset where they're afraid to try new things, they're afraid to not be comfortable, and it stunts their learning. Even if they already know a bit, and then they get frustrated at these plateaus. So I think like when you're first getting into these games, you want to play them because it looks fun, exciting. You want to do cool things. Sure, you might start mashing out at the beginning, pressing all the buttons and doing whatever, but that's as good a starting point as any. You want to get in there and just experience the game. The first thing you should do, it's like I want to play the game, so I'm going to play it. That's the mindset you should cultivate. And like you said, don't be afraid of being embarrassed. Don't be afraid of being wrong. Go out there and be wrong. Go out there and be right. Go out there and just do whatever you want. Do something because you think it's fun to look at on the screen. Do something because you like that character's animation when they do it. Come up with your own reasons and just like sit down and just do stuff. Like think of fighting games like a sandbox. You get in there, you don't have like an end goal right away, right? You can build a castle, you can kick the dirt around, you can pour water and make mud. You can do a whole lot of things. So like keep your mind open and just approach it with the mindset of, this looks cool and I want to start this journey, and whatever happens happens.
Yep. And that's like the sandbox. I really like that because like it's you really do have that freedom in fighting games, and I think that's where the intimidation comes from. It's like you don't know what that first step you should take. You don't know if you should throw a punch here, throw a kick there, but just press it like it's like a piano just to get that note, just to get that like that sound, just to hear it for the first time. And be like, do I like this sound better than the other sound? Like just press that button. And just, figure out what you like the most. And if you see that you're landing that kick consistently, keep going for that kick.
Yeah, it's just like observe things and find out what's working, what you're having fun with, and just start from there. Like your whole thing when you pick up a game or any, skilled endeavor isn't to be the master as soon as you do it. You're not gonna pick up that guitar and, without the calluses, the hours and hours of practicing, start playing your favorite, solo. Yeah, that's not how it's going to work. So what you need to do is get in there and say, I need to find something about this that is worthwhile and fun, and that will be the thing that guides me, from small beginner to world class champion if I choose to go that route. So don't ever forget, what's driving you and what it is you want to do when you pick these games up. And you don't have to have the goal of being like amazing. You don't have to have the goal of beating everybody you meet. You could just have the goal as like, I want to learn enough about this so I can have fun, but I know enough about what's going on that, that I can enjoy the game on several levels.
Yeah, just make sure you keep that enjoyment with that. Um, I guess the next thing I want to talk about is you know, because you do, it is a one to one. It is like you're gonna play somebody eventually, right? And I
Hmm.
think that's what plays through people's mind when they're playing these games. They're like, oh, I'm going to play somebody, or I'm about to play somebody. It's very nerve wracking because I have nobody to blame. It's not like the typical like other team based games, and it's everything is on you, and that's where like the hard part comes in. But I guess which would now or what you should do is the transition is to just get in a groove, get a feel. Like for me, example, I I play music, blast it, and just like just find my groove. It's like if somebody threw you out, and I'll use the dancing analogy again. If somebody like just threw you out on the dance floor and just put music and had some like play your favorite song, and you start dancing and embarrassing yourself, and it's like people would just start shaking their head and like, oh, I get it, and then that's you just lose yourself at that point. And the hardest part comes to like gameplay, actually getting into it. What should I do next? Like, what should I recognize? And it can be overwhelming because there's so much stuff that's coming at you at once. But like you said earlier, is find like something that you like whether it's a character or a move, and just play around with that. Maybe you could do it for like hours on end, and then that's when you just that's when you start to find that breaking point. I feel where you start to finally really get comfortable with the game itself.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta put this like you're never gonna get comfortable until you just actually sit down and play. And a lot of people they fall into the trap of like you were kind of alluding to earlier, psyching themselves out. Like I'll never be as good as that person. I'll never understand what's going on. This game just looks like a bunch of garbled mess to me, or whatever the case is. And reality is, yeah, getting into that mindset, however you do it, like you said, Casey, it might be music. It could be, sitting down and playing with your significant other behind you, cheering you on, whatever the case is. Just, know that whatever you do in the game does not affect you on any, real level. So feel free to do whatever you like and just enjoy it for what it is. And if you make that the focal point, and I know I already repeated this, then it makes practice easier. It makes learning easier when you want to get to those things, but you don't have to make them your primary focus right away. Your goal is like, I just want to play the fighting game, and that's perfectly
Yep,
fine.
yep. Get that character. You got that favorite line you like to hear. So yeah, that's the beauty of it. Uh, Now here comes the hard part. Um, I would say, y- like I said, you might be nervous when you actually sit down and actually play other people. You might be nervous because like other people are probably watching, critiquing, um, and this is a step where you're like, all right, I had a little bit of training or a little bit of mess around with the game. Now I want to showcase some stuff off. Um, it's don't be intimidated about that part too. And it's okay to like feel nervous. Honestly, everybody still feels nervous, and this is the biggest thing I wanted to talk about. At all levels, people are still nervous. At the highest level, mediocre level, and I was like, everybody is gonna be nerds.
Yeah, that's kind of inherent to competition. Even whether it's just playing around with randoms online, or you're sitting your butt in a seat at a big name tournament. Either way, you still get put in that place where you got to perform against another person. One thing I was actually going to point out is for a lot of people, and I never hear this suggested too much, but I think sitting down and actually playing in like the arcade modes and other single player modes, and like making that your comfort place to like try new things before you try them versus people is a good idea as well. So don't ever feel the need, don't feel like you always have to like immediately go play people constantly. Go play someplace where there's no pressure on you, and to ease yourself into things as you go play people.
That's very important. Yeah, because you can go to trainer mode and put the computer at different levels and just play them for hours on end if you want. And here's the beauty part about it: you don't lose any health because it's in training mode, and the character is just punching you and kicking you all day. And if you get frustrated, just bring the level down a little bit. you know, it's you don't have too much like incentive or like anything to lose when you're like messing around in training mode. It's the during the gameplay, it's the discovery part. For That's the most beautiful part about fighting games, is the discovery. Even at a level where you don't know anything about it, it's like everybody's constantly finding something new. You become like your own like little scientist.
Yeah, that's science is definitely how you're gonna go about that. I'll go over that like towards the end, but yeah, having a method to approach these things helps immensely for anybody really.
And don't ever feel like you're wasting time. Like, because the beautiful thing about fighting games is there's a lot of hand-eye coordination. You hear that a lot, and it helps so much. It helps you keep your mind sharp, um, and alert on a lot of things. So, and there's this stereotype or the stigma or whatever that people say that for I guess for women that they don't have good hand-eye coordination as men. I disagree with that. Um, the FGC has proven time and time again, fighting game community has proven time and time again that women are just not just as good, if not better, than the men in that aspect. So yeah, don't feel like you're wasting time. You're actually like it's actually like a small workout, a small exercise for your muscles, your muscle memory, exercising your brain. It's really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of value to just getting in there and just messing around. Like don't ever discount that. And yeah, I know a lot of people go into training mode, they're intimidated because it's like I don't have a purpose. I don't know what to do in here. And sometimes if you don't know what to do, just do anything. Or if you had any questions or anything like that, that's something you can approach as well. But we can talk about that particular part later. But yeah, like as far as like you just got a new fighting game, or you saw your friends playing the game and you're like, these people have been playing for years, or I don't know how to play fighting games. My biggest advice, and I say this to a lot of people, is just play the game. Just play the game. Yeah, like all the questions, the learning, the training will come after that.
And it's so cliche to hear that. It's like, that trainer, that exercising commercial where it's like, you gotta take that first step, man. If you can't take that first step, you're not gonna get nowhere. You just gotta take that first step. And once you take that first step, that's when things open up for you. It's true with this. I know it's so cliched, and I know you're like, Casey, why are you saying this? But it's so true. It works.
Yeah, like I always feel bad giving that advice. It's like it's obvious, but for a lot of people, it's not obvious, or rather, it's one of those things where you know it rationally, but you just can't follow through because I see a lot of people get trapped in the cycle of I gotta ask a bunch of questions like what character should I play? What are these characters' options? What do I do to this, and this? I'm like, but then they don't really turn on the game at all, and it's like it doesn't really mesh well. Like you're not gonna be able. You can know a lot about the game, but then you won't be able to play it, to execute in it, to do things in it. So like you don't forget the number one thing, turn on the game and play it, and everything else It will open up after that, just like you said. That's what you got to do. Sit down and say, I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna look silly. I'm gonna do random supers, whatever the case is, but I'm going to play, and nobody can stop me.
Yep. And I think another thing that like really turns people off is where they'll say, well, this player or that player has way more experience than me. But the cool thing about especially in like, the gaming community and just social media in general is you have easier access to pick these experienced players' brains.
And for sure, there's a lot of resources, but like the core thing you brought up is something I was actually about to mention too. Comparing yourself to people is the worst thing you can do. That's not fighting game specific. That is anything you want to be skilled at. You look at a famous drummer when you're trying to learn, a band song, with your own drum set, and you're gonna feel intimidated. But a lot of those people they start the same way as you. They did their scales, they did their first steps, whatever the case is, they started with the basics without knowing anything, and that's what you got to do for yourself. And you got to accept that your pace may be fast in some areas and it may be slow in some areas. And you accept that this is an endeavor of time. It's not something that, oh, I've been playing for 3 years, I should be the best, because a lot of people think that way inadvertently sometimes, but they think, I've been playing these games for 3, 4, 5 years. I should be winning these tournaments. I should be in top eight, but then they're not, and they're like, I've wasted all my time. But in reality, everybody's pace is different, and what inspires that next big idea is going to come from any random place. Maybe someone in the chat said something to you. Maybe you randomly saw a stream and saw somebody do something and something clicked, and you keep going for those experiences, you keep playing, and you try to get to the point where a lot more things start clicking. So that's again, we're going right back to playing the game. So ultimately, get in the mindset, don't get bogged down by fear, don't get too caught up in what you should and shouldn't do in the games. Your first goal before you play the game should just be, being okay with whatever is going to happen, to turn the game on and play it. That's all I can really say about it at this point.
Dude, I'm so happy the way you said like bring up your come up with your own, like, you're not going to be fast in learning in some areas, but you're not also you're going to be probably slow in, like, you're going to be fast in learning some areas, and you're going to be slow learning some other areas. You get right. So the cool thing about that is that's when you kind of like get into finding your own style, when you just find different when you find something that clicks with you, like you said, with the guitar thing. Like, I don't play guitar seriously or in general, but Tom Morello, a famous guitar player, I'm pretty sure all you guys have heard him before. He's the guitarist for Rage Against the Machine. For people who probably didn't know, um, he the way he found his style is like one day he just was messing around with like a if I remember correctly, like a pin or something, and he just started smacking the guitar a certain way, and that's how he found his style. Nobody told him or anything. I'm sure he was influenced by many guitarists before him and during him, but he didn't, like, stress out too much. He just, like, played around, fiddled with it a little bit, and just like, you know what, I think I found my own style. And then that blew up. And that's the beautiful part for me. So when I see people find like their own thing within fighting games, catching on to stuff that even the strongest players don't even can't even see. It's like you find your own little matrix. You can tap into that. It's so sick.
Yeah, we all have like you said, our own styles and our own way of learning in general. Like there's ways that some people they can sit in a lecture and they can absorb everything. Other people they'll fall asleep. And other people if you put something hands on, they'll get anxiety. But other people they'll touch it, feel it, play with it, and then they'll understand it. So find out what it is that makes knowledge stick to you, what motivates you, and that'll help as well. So don't when somebody gives you their own learning style, like you need to do this and this and this to be good, it might work for you, but sometimes it might not, or it might work for you partially. So, be skeptical, but be open-minded at the same time and understand that there's no one direct path to being whatever it is you want to be when you pick up a fighting game.
There's no end of the world for trying things in fighting games. There's you're just trying things in a fighting game. It's that simple.
Yeah, you say that, and it's like a lot of people look at it and they're like, one of my friends who I won't name, he's been playing the fighting games. He'll play and then he'll go into training mode. And he'll sit there and it's like, I have to do all of this. Did all the people who beat me do all of this? And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is yes. But like the people who went above and beyond, yeah, they typically do certain things, like the training mode, watching the replays, and all of that stuff. But don't feel like so there's a saying. I know Dogi Salmon says it a lot, and it's something I believe as well. Is that most people they don't actually know what they're doing. At least not, and I don't mean that in a everybody's bad kind of way. I mean like most people don't put in the extra effort to go above and beyond to like really learn something. I don't mean just the competitive. I mean like anybody who picks up something in any like at the workplace, picking up an instrument. Most people like they'll learn to a certain extent, or they won't learn at all, and they'll just try to fill it out. But don't ever feel like there's a whole bunch of people out there in lab coats and with the clipboards and computers and beaker sets trying to figure you out when in reality they're doing the same thing as you. They're just kind of floating along and just enjoying the game for what it is. So that's when you want to do all that stuff later, that's what puts you above other people. But at the start, you don't have to feel like you have to be like some scientist because most people aren't. And even if, and there's a lot of people you can give them, here's these setups, excuse me, here's how to play these games, here's how to do this with this character, and they still won't do it. And so you don't have to feel intimidated by other people. Just go by your own pace and pick up stuff as you're willing to learn it.
And to make people feel comfortable at, even at the highest of levels, if you see two people players going against each other in grand finals, the first interaction in grand finals is most likely 90% of the time is not really like a textbook response. What I mean by that is like when the game says round one, fight, it's not this character does that, so I'm gonna react with this. It's basically what they're gonna do is they're just gonna try something. They're just gonna press a button, do this, and see if it works. If it works, I'm like, all right, cool, that worked. If it didn't work, all right, cool, that didn't work. And it's as simple as that. It works not just at the highest level, but you can do it at the like when you're starting on fighting games. You just you're going against a friend. Let me just try this at the start of the round. Did it work? Crap, it didn't work. That's hilarious. Did it work? Oh, that's so sick. And you got hit by it. Now I remember, and now I will keep that information for next time. It's simple as that.
Yeah. And it's like it's one of those things where it's simple but tedious because you just got to do that over and over and over again. But then again, that's the mountain. You start out with one piece and then you do the next and then you do the next, and eventually you have built yourself up a great deal of knowledge that you can utilize versus people. And you might look around and be like, a lot of people don't have as much knowledge as I do if you keep on going and doing it diligently. I guess
Yeah,
one
and
thing.
most of it is when you see people play like at such a fast pace, most of that is just like you said, a combination of knowledge and it's just they're just flowing at that point. They know how to play the game. So at that point, they're literally just riding the bike. They're making their left turns. They're making right turns. They're stopping. They're honking the horn and stuff like that. So like it's literally at that point where they're not thinking about it too much.
Yeah, at some point, it's just one of those things where you just got to feel comfortable trying things out, and like the things that'll come later be like you watching your replays. But if you can like keep track of certain things when you first start playing, and make sure you don't overwhelm yourself by thinking about all 100 and whatever options. So just think about the one situation you can control until you can control it, and then move on and move on and move on. Um,
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions, even in person. If you just so happen to play like a fighting game in person and like somebody does something and you're curious about it, just be like like just be afraid to ask them how to do it because most 9 times out of 10 they're going to be happy to help you.
Yeah, for sure. That right there is a specific power of community. So if you can find yourself, a good community with people that are helpful, don't feel bad, especially because a lot of people probably have those questions. You know what they say in school? Everybody has that question, but only the one person raised their hand. But then five people in the classroom wanted to know. That's how a lot of stuff is in fighting games, because a lot of people assume they know stuff, or if they don't know anything, they don't want to feel dumb by saying, I don't know that. And I notice the people who will just be like, "What is this?" after, seeing it over and over again because they don't know what it is and they don't want to pretend. They actually want to know what it is, and those are the people who tend to grow. Be honest about what you don't know. Even if you've been around for years, you can find out that you didn't know or you were incorrect about a basic thing, and it's okay to get corrected. It happens to everybody.
Yep. And then once you find out, whatever you find out, that's when you find out, like, things you didn't know about fighting games, it's always like, the enlightening part. Now you're like, whoa, I can do this with that. Uh, Now I can take this and, after the gameplay, now you can go into like doing your own like little research. This is like, I guess, the science part that like, you guess, I mentioned earlier that you wanted to also talk about.
Hmm.
you you now you can like take whatever information, and it doesn't have to be a lot, like we said earlier. It can be one small thing. It could be like I said, it started around, I hit you and it worked. Why did it work? Well, when I get the chance, I'm gonna check, like go to training mode or something like that, and it's just see why it worked.
Yeah, so another thing people get fixated on is thinking of things in kind of binary, where it's black and white, right or wrong. And I feel like that is not the best way to approach things. You think you got to look at everything as context specific, because the reasons around a situation will affect the outcome of those situations. As long as you think like that, you'll be fine. Like going back to the science analogy, the big thing I always like to tell people as well is try to use a scientific method. You come up with the hypothesis, and then you make observations, and then you test the hypothesis, and then you look at the situations around, like, this character had a full, meter down below when they did this, and so that when they have a full bar of meter at the below the screen, that gives them their super move. Um, they act differently than when they don't. So my hypothesis changes based on some situation data that changed on the screen. So keeping that kind of concept in mind is very helpful. So come up with these hypotheses constantly and test them. And what you're going to find is sometimes they're correct, and then you go like, oh, in these situations they're not correct, or they're close to correct. So I got to adjust the hypothesis, and you just go back around in a cycle. And the big thing where you get your hypothesis from is when you're playing and you go, this character did this, spinning kick move at me. What can I do about that? You ask yourself a question. So now your question is, what can I do about that? So you form a hypothesis. Well, I know my character has a move where they shoot a fireball, so I'm gonna try that. And you go and you try it, and they do it again, and it turns out the kicky move goes over your fireball and hits you. So your hypothesis failed, right? And so your next thing you know is like, I'm gonna do this one move where here, my character punches into the air. I'm gonna try that. You try it, and then you knocked out that person out of their kicking move, and boom, you have a hypothesis that worked that time. So ask yourself questions, and then come up with solutions or theories of how it works, and keep doing that over and over again, and you'll gradually build knowledge. You'll gradually correct yourself because you're going to be wrong a lot at first, and that's what's really important. You're going to be wrong, but that's not the problem, and that's nothing wrong with that. Excuse the overuse of the word, but the actual issue is when you get too scared to be wrong, not realizing that's how you become right or get closer to being right, is being wrong over and over, but less and less each time. Be wrong. As was it Magic School Bus? Miss Frizzle used to say, get was it make mistakes, take chances, make mistakes, get messy. That's exactly what fighting games is at its core.
Yeah, you got to build that foundation. You got that Magic School Bus reference. I've had seen that shit a long time. But yeah, you got to build that foundation, and once you start that and you go wrong so many times, it's okay. Like, there's no constitution to fighting games, and we mentioned this in like the first episode. There's no right or wrong, like you said earlier, to way you approach or play a fighting game. There's maybe more efficient ways to play, but still, you can create your own efficient way. is that journey getting there is like, the part that we're trying to like, pretty much stress that you don't have to worry about too much about it, and you're going to be wrong, like he said, uh, multiple times. There's so many, I can't even tell you how many times I've been wrong, how many times I've lost. Some of the greatest players, how many times they've been wrong and how many times they lost just to get that W or just to get that information, not even just to win, but the smallest of information to like, get them to the next step to get better, you know? And now I know it sounds tedious. It sounds like, we're creating like you're creating like probably the biggest puzzle and trying to pull a piece from that, but it's really not that tedious. It's as simple as it is. You, like you said, you have a hypothesis, and then you have like other peer research to ask just to make sure if your research is correct. To go back in and then just find out and utilize the what you've learned for your next test, and then you know, and it's not a hard test. Actually, it's not a test at all.
Yeah, you
But yeah.
can't really. There's no real pass or fail. Like a lot of people look at losing and winning as passing and failing, but that's not true because you can get hit a bunch and still win, and you can get hit very little and still lose. So it's not always like that cut and dry. Like I said, looking at things as black and white is generally not as helpful as just being broad-minded and understanding what is happening. Because sometimes you might get hit, for a specific reason. Because even the best players will get hit if they play the worst player over and over again. They're not gonna score all perfect. So there's something there that means that means that getting hit isn't inherently bad, wrong, or whatever. So it's just one of those things you just take it as what happened. And if you look at things that way, a lot of it is easier, and it makes losing and winning, easier to kind of swallow when you just don't look at it as how can I put this? Kind of like this is who you are. You're a loser. This is who you are. You're a winner. Because at the end of the day, not many people are gonna remember if you sit out and play some casuals and win or lose. That's or go online for an hour. It's not gonna like your grandma's not gonna call you up and like Timmy, I heard you lost in rank 5 times. You're gonna be okay. It's not any kind of what can I say? It's not any kind of indication of your character, worth, or
No,
anything
no,
like
no,
that.
no, and that's another big problem that I see that goes around with fighting games. Like people try to attest to or like your personality to your gameplay, and that's totally different. I know some of the smartest people in the world have like the weirdest, dumbest gameplay, but like they make it work. That's all it comes down to is making it work for you. And here's a tip for anybody that is new to fighting games or anybody just interested in fighting games, and you just want to take it to like whatever next level. And if you're going against somebody that you feel like is better than you, whatever, in that case, one thing I've always done, and it works at any level, is I try not to get perfected. I'll just press a button, make sure I get a hit at any point in the match. I don't care how I get it, when I hit it. I don't care who's looking. I don't care how embarrassing it is to get that weird hit or whatever. I don't care if I lose. I just got the hit. I am super happy because you did not block that one time. You made a mistake. I capitalized on it on that one time. Bam. That is my goal. And if you start there, you will build such a cool foundation, such a strong foundation to the point where like everything will start to flow from there.
Definitely makes sense. One thing I don't think I've ever verbalized this to anybody, or maybe I have, is I always kind of say in my mind, if I can get a hit and then I can get another hit, and if I can get multiple hits, I can get around, and if I can get around, I can get a game, and if I can get a game, I can get a set. And I feel like if you keep that mindset and you focus on gradually building up, and then that kind of thing naturally happens, and it works against anybody really. one of the things I always kind of always struggle with is when I see some players of like higher skill and think, man, it's gonna be a while before I can beat them. But the reality is, many times you're closer than you think to beating a person, and sometimes you're further away than you think. But like going into a match thinking about other person's skill is not really all that worthwhile. It's more about testing what you know versus what another person knows and gradually increasing what you know until maybe one day you do beat them and maybe they'll keep ahead of you. But making that like the focus of, your worth in fighting games will drive you insane probably. So just always focus on building up your foundation, walking your path at your own pace. Don't get wrapped up in who you should and shouldn't be beating because a lot of people, how can I put this? I would Everybody has an ego, right? And everyone knows that, but people don't realize how driven they are by their egos. And by that I mean even somebody who's very humble and is self-deprecating will lose to somebody, but in their deep inside themselves, it's like I should still be able to beat that person, and then that'll manifest as frustration and annoyance, and they'll like hate themselves or drive down their own value. But understand that you have an ego, and your ego thinks it can take on anybody, and that's fine. Just accept that sometimes that is not the case. You're not always going to win, but it's not a direct reflection of you. As much as we said that, I feel like we should say it again because it's really important.
Yeah, these fighting games are not a reflection of who you are as a person or how express yourself.
Yep, not your intelligence or anything like that, because I've seen it all. So, we started this out, don't be afraid. This while you're playing people and you're learning, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to lose. Don't be afraid to get hit. Don't be afraid to try that new tactic. Even though, anything, just don't be afraid of just engaging the game in any sense.
Yep. And if you find yourself routinely doing it and you feel like you're getting nowhere, like I said earlier, it's not a waste of time. You're getting you're gaining knowledge, you're getting that muscle memory, you're exercising your yourself and yourself in your brain, and you're making you make yourself very, very sharp. And then at the end of the day, by the time you're done, after you're done playing and everything, you've got all the information. Just remember, we said this in the beginning, to have fun.
For sure, for sure. Um, like one of the things you pointed out, crap, like I just kind of lost my place. But
You still here? We still here,
we
baby.
still, um, yeah, just put it lightly. Yeah, just like it come. This is super important. Play the game, play the game, play the game. No matter which phase of this we're talking about, it's about playing the game. And if you're somebody who's new to fighting games, um, and you've listened to this at this point, and you're like, I feel more comfortable playing these games and getting into it. At some point, you're probably gonna be like, okay, I've been playing a lot, I've been losing a lot, I don't quite understand, I don't know what's going on so much, but I'm enjoying myself, but I still want to push it past this point. And so I feel like that should be the next object of what we talk about. Subject.
Okay.
All right. I guess the first thing I'll say is we alluded to this earlier as asking questions, but essentially seeking your community. And when again, like you said, like we said, you got to find a good community with good people. But what do you do? Like you find these people and you say, what do you do? Do you just ask whatever question? I feel like you should. Like there's
Yeah.
never a
Don't be
dumb
afraid to
question.
ask whatever question.
Yeah, whatever question. Don't feel bad or dumb or anything. Also, the thing you got to do is engage with the answer and try it out. Like, honestly, try it out and figure it out for yourself as you get those answers. Don't just be like, I tried that once, I don't think it works. So go, what is the context? If you don't understand the context of like, I tried that, tell them I tried this once and it didn't work. And they may say, well, when you tried it, was this happening? You like, oh no, that wasn't. So keep digging deeper. And when someone gives you tactics, try them out, and then go ask yourself, why does this work if it starts working, or why doesn't this work? And try to figure it out and increase your own learning while asking these questions. Like, make sure you don't just ask the questions, get the answer, and be like, well, whatever, and go back to doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask multiple people the same question because I'm gonna be honest with you, some of us as teachers are not that good, and that's no disrespect. It's just like you could be really you could be like the player of the game, like the MVP of the game, but you can't be a coach. So you know that case doesn't always work out. So people, yeah, don't be afraid that like ask multiple questions, the same questions to different people, because the good thing about that is you'll get different approaches, and it'll get you brainstorming more. So
Yeah, some people will be more thorough, some people will be more concise, but you'll get more point of views, and it may help you understand the overall, problem better. That's definitely something I would suggest. And so I guess another thing, just knowing your resources in general. A lot of people will point you to a wiki, which depending on the community of that game will be, robust or empty. So just to take it as it is. Same with videos. Some games have a ton of videos and some games don't have very many. So what you want to do when you get on these resources and you read these things, they're not always going to be true or they're not always going to be very specific, even if they are true. So what you should do, again, turn the game on and try these things out and like, does this really work? And ask yourself questions and then go ask those other people questions again. So use those resources as like multiple angles of attack, essentially, of attacking a problem. So you see a video that has some combo that a character does, try it out yourself. And if you can't do it, go ask somebody like, oh yeah, when you do this combo, you have to do this for it to work, and then you might understand a little bit more about your character. So just more resources, the better.
yeah, and don't be embarrassed if people see you going in on these fighting games. It's okay. People going in on the fighting games are interesting because they're still new in terms of like the gaming era, I guess, or how the gaming approach, because it's still new in general. With so all the information that you're going to get out there, it may not be like 100%, straight to like the T to the what's the word I'm looking for, stone in stone, right? You might have to find the other pieces somewhere else. So it's okay if like if something doesn't work out, if somebody gives you information and it doesn't work out, maybe maybe you'll find it on your own, maybe you find it yourself. That's and then maybe you can help that tell that player who is who you see that's like understands fighting games better than you. Maybe you could tell them, look, I tested this out, I found out that like it's actually doesn't work like this, and that's cool because now you're like giving feedback, you're helping out not just you but like the community in general and stuff. So
For sure, for sure. So yeah, a lot of things, and that's unfortunate about some fighting games. You're gonna just have to find them out yourself. Like especially like if you decide to pick up an older fighting game that might not be well documented, might not have a lot of players, and you might find yourself in a position where, you got to learn things the hard way, which is get in there and get beat up constantly and constantly adjust. But it still kind of still falls along the lines of what we were talking about earlier.
yeah, discovery, it's such a beautiful thing in fighting games, and it's actually probably like my top three things of why I got into fighting games. It's just pure discovery and talking to people and seeing what people have to bring to the table. It's like it's so it's like if you're going to a big feast and everybody has their own special recipe that they're bringing to the table. That's how it feels every time I interact with somebody in FGC, so or in fighting games. So in general, when you're playing, whether you're playing somebody or talking to them, so it's a very another thing that I guess I didn't think I would talk about till now, but it's very good social wise. You get to talk from people, meet people from all walks of life who are pretty much involved in the same thing as you. It's kind of like there's the universal language is high. It's the modern universal language is gaming. So with fighting games, it sprinkles a little bit different flavor on that, and that's the thing I like. It brings its own flavor to that.
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of the people who I talk to every day, I met through the fighting game community from picking up these games and then going out to see who else played them. So like yeah, that can be something that's immensely rewarding. Just be careful and make sure you associate with people who got your best interest in mind.
Yep, yep. Well, I have no more for that, man. For this, it's I just wanted to give people help people get into the scene, or even if you haven't got if you are already in the scene, maybe these are some like things you never heard before, or took the approach of, and then you like want kind of like want to start over, and it's like have a new fresh start. Maybe hopefully this episode helps.
Yeah. So you got a quick summary of what you want to say in closing?
Like I said, remember to have fun, and it's once there's going to be a point where you want, and this is the point where everybody gets to in the match, whether you're good or bad. Well, I mean, if you're novice or advanced player, um, where you got to come down to like the last hit or something like that, right? You and your opponents. Oh, I got to get the last hit, and this is where like if you lose, the panic happens, you get frustrated or whatever. It's okay to like don't to hope and don't hope and pray for the match winning hit. you know, don't think about it too much, because if you think about it too much, you're gonna dwell on it after, and you're like, maybe I could have did this, shoulda, coulda, woulda, and that's all fighting games in a nutshell. And that's small situation. It's all shoulda, coulda, woulda. When just don't think about it too much. The situation happened, you took advantage of it, or you didn't. Move along, and that's just like life. So yeah, um, hopefully that helps people. I hope I didn't intimidate people by saying that. It's actually fun, just gaining, seeing a situation, taking knowledge from it, and just moving on.
Word. I guess I would just say, the fear is natural, but as I said multiple times over this show, play the game, play the game, play the game. And once you play the game, start looking around what's happening, the communities around you, the way people, I guess, looking at the people who you play and understanding new things from them. Other than that, it's like keep playing the game and then keep just
Play the game.
play the game. It's like I keep trying to fluff it up, but I can't fluff it up. Play the
You
game
can't say no, say it
because
no better than
yeah,
that.
you get more comfortable with the game. You'll feel more confident in the game, and you'll realize there's a lot more to it, and but that you can also pick it up, and don't be intimidated by it because everybody starts out with nothing, and so you never know how far you can go. So just try and don't feel caught up on winning and losing. If you enjoy the game, then enjoy it, and the rest will kind of fall into place if you let it.
Yeah. You'll hit that flow. There's a you always whatever you do, like I said in the beginning, whatever skill you got good at because that you were bad at first, and eventually got good at it. There's a flow that you hit. You don't think about it too much, right? Yeah, that's you'll eventually hit that flow, and you won't think about it too much. And, you know,
Word. And if you never had that experience of getting good at something before, well, hey, maybe fighting games will be the first thing, and that'll help you get
I,
good at other things.
nah, I disagree. If you everybody knows how to brush their teeth, wash their ass.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a difference between a lot of stuff people have learned as a kid and what they've learned later as a deliberate thing. Because I
That's
actually
true.
had this conversation with a friend where it's like, if you had to learn how to read now, how would you go about it? A
Mm,
lot of people are like, I would never try. Because like you as a kid where you're just thirsty for knowledge and you're just gobbling it up, and as an adult where you're setting your ways and you're like, I have to acquire this whole skill set, it's a whole different intimidation to it. So I guess I should say, if you've never tried to deliberately get a skill on your own, this can be the first one you get. That'll be, I think, a more accurate phrase, because
are
like you
you
said, there are things that we've all gotten good at because we've been taught over the years.
are you guys ready for it?
What's
You've
up?
heard it before. Baby steps.
Baby steps lead to giant strides.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I got nothing else. Oh, one more thing I will point out. I know we keep stacking stuff on you, but you're not always gonna see your growth. like as like, oh, I learned this, I did this, now I'm growing, I built better. It's gonna be like gradual. You know how like kids get taller or you lose weight or things change, but you look in the mirror because you see it every day, you don't notice it, but the people around you, they'll notice when you get better. So when they say, hey, you improved, don't just take it, at face value and be like, okay. But yeah, don't get caught up in the fact that you feel like you gotta constantly see your progress because a lot of it you won't see.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Well, perfect. Perfect.
all right, so if you see a cool new fighting game, don't hesitate to jump in there and have a blast.
Yeah. Pick your whatever your favorite character from Asuka to the Goku's to the Ryu's. Yeah, just pick whatever character that you find appealing to you and just go right in.
That's what's up. Well, I got nothing else to say, so this is Coach signing out.
Same. Peace.
Peace.
Casey. Peace.